We are gathered here today to talk about the life and death of Muppet Vision 3D. Throughout the years, Disney has slowly given up hope on the Muppets, and with the closure of Muppet Vision 3D, things are starting to look more bleak than ever. It seems, like most corporations, Disney is going down the hole of getting rid of the life and soul out of their art, and only relying on what makes them money. I believe that the pendulum will one day swing to the side of the creators, the lovers, the dreamers, and you. But until then, we must remember the greatness that was Muppet Vision 3D. And there's no better way to celebrate the life and legacy of Muppet Vision 3D than making a YouTube video essay about it. Hey guys, it's me, Emil, and today we're going to be talking about Muppet Vision 3D. Now, I've loved the Muppets since I was a kid, and I've always had fond memories of just going to Hollywood studios and seeing Muppet Vision 3D. Honestly, one of the reasons I want to make movies is because of Hollywood Studios' idealized version of Hollywood. But in the recent years, Hollywood Studios has kind of morphed into not about the idealized version of Hollywood, but what it would be like to go into the movies. Or just Star Wars. However, the core of Muppet Vision 3D has never changed. Disney can revamp the exterior as much as they want, but as long as Muppet Vision 3D still shows, the spirit of the original Hollywood Studios, or MGM Studios, would always live on inside the Disney parks. However, now, it's dead. It's dead and buried, and there is no more Muppet Vision 3D, and there will never be another Muppet Vision 3D until Disney randomly decides, oh yeah, we're gonna put it on Disney Plus. But they're kind of missing the point there. So since today marks the end of Muppet Vision 3D, I really wanted to make a video talking about Muppet Vision 3D. I'm gonna go over the history of Muppet Vision, the downfall of Muppet Vision, and what the ride was like in general for all of you people that still to this day have not experienced Muppet Vision, and you never will. You never will be able to experience Muppet Vision in its original form because there's never gonna be anything else like it, and yeah, that's it. There's no more original Muppet Vision. You can no longer say the original Muppet Vision that Jim Henson intended exists because it's gone. It's actually, I can't believe I'm saying that, and I didn't get to go its final week. I did go to Muppet Courtyard recently. I went in like December and I said my goodbyes then because luckily I had already known about its imminent closure. So I got a few pics in. There was a cast member outside of the Muppet store that isn't open anymore, and I was able to get some cool pictures there and just some pictures around the area. So the idea of Muppet Vision first started coming around the end of the 1980s. Around then, Disney had kind of weighed the deal of maybe purchasing Jim Henson Productions and owning the Muppets, mainly for the sole reason of putting a Muppets attraction inside of their theme park. Now, they weren't just supposed to put one Muppet attraction in the theme park. No. They were supposed to do a big shebang with Muppet Studios. At one point in this decision-making process, they wanted to make an entire Muppets land called the Muppet Studios. Not only would this feature Muppet Vision 3D, it would also feature the Great Muppet Movie Ride, which was a parody of the Great Movie Ride, also extinct now, and a few Muppet-themed restaurants like the Hard Luck Cafe, Great Gonzo's Pandemonium Pizza Parlor, and the Swedish Chef's Video Cooking School, and a TV special called The Muppets at Walt Disney World that released on May 6, 1990. However, all of this, the entire plan of building a Muppets land, Muppets restaurants, and Disney buying the Muppets to begin with was halted when Jim Henson tragically passed away on May 16th, 1990. This stopped the entire deal. However, before Jim had passed away, they've already filmed all of Muppet Vision 3D. So they kind of just had Muppet Vision 3D and they just didn't have the theme park rights to the Muppets yet. And then eventually around August, they reached a deal somehow with the Muppets. And eventually they decided to bring Muppet Vision 3D back, and they were going to open it a year after Jim Henson passed away in 1991. I'm going to stop and talk about the pre-show of Muppet Vision 3D for a second, but the pre-show was something that was not filmed before the death of Jim Henson. From what I gather from watching like podcasts about it, I'm almost positive that Frank Oz took the charge when it came to the pre-show, and that's why a lot of the characters are voiced in the pre-show by like Frank Oz, Dave Goelz, Richard Hunt, Steve Whitmire, people like that. There is no Jim Henson character in the entirety of the pre-show, and the reason was because they had to finish this after Jim passed away to open Muppet Vision 3D. When Muppet Vision 3D opened to the public, it was there in all of its Muppet glory. Any great thing that was there for Muppet Vision 3D was there at the opening of the attraction. They had the big fountain up front, the hot air balloon on top of the building, the awesome Kermit the Frog sign, and the Muppet Stuff Store didn't have the little Elmo taken off yet, off of the little awning. The next big change that happened to Muppet Vision 3D in Hollywood studios was in 2013. All the references to Kodak, the original sponsor of Muppet Vision 3D, disappeared, and they got rid of all the Kodak from Muppet Vision. And then the next big change wouldn't happen until November 18th, 2016. This is when the Muppet area of the park expanded into a bigger land. And not only would it just be Muppet Vision 3D and the gift shop, they would also have Pizza Rizzo. And this kind of used the idea of Gonzo's Pandemonium Pizza Parlor and turned it into an actual rat-themed restaurant. Because I'm pretty sure it was Gonzo's Pizza Parlor where they were supposed to have rats, little animatronic rats, running across the ceiling and serving you your food, because that was a very Muppety type thing to do. I think it's the pizza parlor that would eventually turn into Mama Melrose Pizza, and that's why there's those little, like, beams across the ceiling of Mama Melrose. Well, that's closed now too. That's all of Muppet Courtyard's closed. But still, the Mama Melrose little, the things on the top, those are supposed to be for little rats to run across and deliver your food. And this idea was eventually watered down and then turned into Pizza Rizzo's. Pizza Rizzo's isn't a bad restaurant, it's just not as highly themed as it could have been. And this would turn that entire area into Muppet's Courtyard, but just for a little bit. But in 2017, things got really, really bad for the Muppets. And I believe it was the fault of Star Wars. That's right, I'm gonna blame you, George Lucas. I'm almost positive that if Disney would have never made Galaxy's Edge, Muppet Vision would still be alive today. Because of the really strange incorporation of Galaxy's Edge in the back of the park, it led to this weird thing where Muppet Vision had to change so you couldn't get taken out of the immersion inside of Galaxy's Edge, whatever the hell that means. So as construction was ongoing for Galaxy's Edge in 2017, Muppet's Courtyard got a few changes. The giant sign that had Kermit on it would disappear and change to a little like marquee sign, which in my opinion looks worse, and I still like am not used to it. I think that the Kermit sign is like infinitely better. The fountain design changed. It used to have Gonzo, and it used to have Fozzie, and it used to have Animal. There was a lot of Muppets in the fountain, and Miss Piggy used to spin. But with this overhaul in 2017, they got rid of all that, and now it's just Miss Piggy in the middle. I guess to make it more like modern and updated. I don't know, where's the fun? Where's the whimsy? And then I think the biggest change that they did was they took the hot air balloon down, and that one really sucked. The hot air balloon was not just a reference to the beginning of the Great Muppet Caper, but it was kind of a focal point, because you could see that thing all around Hollywood studios, and that would bring you directly to Muppet Vision 3D. But once they started rearranging the park's layout and getting rid of the giant sight point that brings you right to Muppet Vision 3D, I think that hurt them more than anything. Yeah, whatever, it would take you out of the immersion from Star Wars for like 2 seconds, but who the hell cares? Build a rock. They did that in Disneyland with the Matterhorn. Oh no, you can see the Matterhorn from like Main Street. Okay, they built a tree. They put a tree in front of Matterhorn that was the same shape of the Matterhorn, just so you couldn't see it. Oh no, you could see the Tower of Terror in Morocco in Epcot. Okay, they got around it by painting the back of Tower of Terror to look like Morocco. Why the hell couldn't you just move the place of the hot air balloon, or put a rock where you just couldn't see the Kermit the Frog hot air balloon? I don't get I don't get why they got rid of that. In 2019, there was also some big changes to Muppet Courtyard. The original mural on the side of Muppet Vision 3D, which I completely forgot existed until I was researching for this video, but at the side of it, it brought back a lot of nostalgia, and I'm even more mad that Disney would decide to get rid of that. What the mural was this. It was this right here. This picture of Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy on the original Muppet movie poster, but on a giant wall, and it said Muppet Vision on the side of the entire building, but they decided to just repaint it to match the rest of the buildings. And this is when they turned Muppet's Courtyard into Grand Avenue, which just made it look like frickin' Los Angeles for some reason. And then I'm pretty sure it was COVID that shut down the Muppet gift shop. So at this point, the only thing left standing was the original Muppet Vision 3D. And now we might not even have that. So do you see the frustration now? It feels like the Muppets are the redheaded stepchild of the Disney company. They don't get movies or TV shows unless they're begged. They get all their joy and whimsy taken out of them for their more profitable projects. Like, I'm not denying that Star Wars makes more money than the Muppets. It's just sad that every brand under the Disney umbrella isn't treated fairly. Oh my god, I'm fighting Kylo Ren right now, and I can totally frickin' see Kermit the Frog's hot air balloon. balloon. I'm totally taken out of this. This makes no sense in the Star Wars canon. What am I gonna do? Ah! Well, you know what? Luke Skywalker was on an episode of The Muppet Show, so technically, the Muppet Hot Air Balloon would make sense in Galaxy's Edge. Suck on that. And while we're on that topic, release season 4 and 5 of The Muppet Show on DVD, because maybe that's why people don't know that it would technically make sense in the Star Wars canon. I need to cool down for a minute. Let's move on to a happier note in this video. I think we should talk about the good, innovative parts of Muppet Vision. So whenever you first walk into Grand Arts Theater, you see a little security point, and it says key under the mat. Everybody knows about this little Easter egg. You check under the mat, there's actually a key. It's a pretty cool interactive thing to have in the queue. That's been there, I think, since they first opened. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it is, though. And then, of course, there's the previously mentioned pre-show that plays while you're waiting to get in the Muppet Theater while they're playing another group's version of Muppet Vision 3D. Something that's so unique and creative about this pre-show is that it doesn't just stick to like, oh, I'm Vin Diesel and I'm calling you and I'm on the cell phone. It knows what it is in the kind of sense that Muppet movies, they know what they are. And throughout the pre-show room, there's like sets of 3 TVs, and the Muppets will walk across each screen and at points acknowledge the fact that there's 3 TV screens. Like Gonzo duplicates himself and starts talking to himself. That's the kind of Muppet flair you wouldn't get in any other attraction. And if they don't do something like that in Rock and Roller Coaster, what are you doing? That's an easy win. Just do that. But besides that, you know, the Muppets are just kind of doing bits. There's the point where the painter paints all the screens and then fish appear because he painted fish on the screen, and then the fish disappear because someone unclogs a drain. There's when Sam starts to give the safety instructions and Gonzo and Rizzo start messing with him, and Rizzo comes out as Mickey Mouse. You know, classic stuff. But you know, let's move on to the show that people will no longer be able to experience, at least in that part of Hollywood Studios. My favorite thing about Muppet Vision 3D is they don't hold back on the 3D tricks that they do in this movie. Right at the gate, Gonzo's pretending that there's a 3D effect happening, but then the door opens and there's just like a giant 3D pole that is sticking out at the audience. And then Fozzie comes back and forth with a bunch of cheap 3D tricks throughout the movie. And of course, Waldo, the spirit of 3D. But it's not just the 3D that makes Muppet Vision 3D Muppet Vision 3D. It's all the other effects in the actual theater. As soon as you go in, you see a Statler and Waldorf animatronic on the wall, and they talk the entire show. To even points where characters on the screen will look at them, like peeking their head out into the theater, which I think is such a funny thing that they do in this movie. And then, of course, later in the short, Bean Bunny pops out of nowhere, and he's on the other balcony across from Statler and Waldorf in the theater, which is a nice surprise if you've never seen the thing before. I remember when I was a kid, I was super excited when Bean Bunny just showed up in the other balcony. And then some people, I feel like, don't even know about these other groups of animatronics. On the front of the stage, there's the whole band of penguins. I didn't see them until like the 5th time I watched Muppet Vision 3D. I guess because I was like a baby and I was like kind of short. And then if you turn around during the film, the Swedish Chef is like peeking out of the back of the theater, to the point where they have the cannon fight in the middle of the theater. Also, side note, did you know one of Jim Henson's original ideas for the cannon battle that happens in the middle of Muppet Vision 3D was he wanted to shoot an actual cannonball over the audience? Wouldn't that been insane if they actually did that? But speaking of random things that Jim Henson wanted to add that like interacted with the audience, Sweetums comes running out to see the audience, and then you get the point where there's like 2 Sweetums on screen because he's in the theater, and then at the same time he's just like in the background of the ending of the movie. And then during Sam's glorious 3-hour finale, they shoot the sides out of Muppet Theater, and arrows start sticking out the walls because they shot arrows during that scene. It's one of the most meta things that the Muppets have ever done, and I freaking love it. But yeah, the fact that this is closed, I feel, is bigger than people are making it out to be. As much as people might say, Emil, Muppet Vision is closing. It's an old ride. It's an old ride. We need to get rid of old rides to make room for new rides. Sorry, I think you're missing the point too, buddy. The Muppets in Muppet Vision 3D as a whole stood for more than just an old attraction that would eventually be able to get replaced once it became outdated. And I'm not just saying this because it had a special place in my heart in Disney attractions. Muppet Vision 3D changed the way entirely that we watch these 4D, 3D experiences. Of course, some people didn't learn from that, and we get like Fast and the Furious ride at Universal, but Jim Henson's incorporation of 3D screens, live actors, animatronics, and even freaking bubbles changed how 4D 3D movie experiences would be made, like, for the rest of history. And not to get deep at the end of a Muppet Vision 3D video. It's sad enough already that this thing is closing, but it's sad to see how, like, the creative soul of everything is getting drowned away just for, like, monetary gain and stuff like that. I personally am under the belief that if you are not a creative person and you don't like any of this movie stuff and you're kind of just in it to make money, get out. Get out of any creative field. Leave that to people who actually want these creative opportunities. But I really hope that we kind of turn things around and we get a lot more creative, effortful ideas and not just things just to make a side hustle or things to make money. And I know that Muppet Vision isn't the end of the Muppets in theme parks. They're gonna make that rock and roller coaster thing, which should be pretty fun. I'm more optimistic about it than I previously was, but it's gonna take some time to get used to. I really hope they pull all the creative stops that they did with Muppet Vision 3D for this new rock and roller coaster ride. And also, if you like Muppet videos like this, how about you stick around, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you guys next week. I got more videos like this coming soon. Bye guys, see ya.